130,000 pesos. That's what an 18-year-old found sitting in his inbox. An email from a lending app, his mom's outstanding balance. His family earns good money. They don't live large. And still, every single month, the last 2 weeks look like a financial emergency. There is an explanation here, but it's not the explanation most people expect. Hey Profiteer, Eric here. Welcome back to Real Money Stories. Today's episode comes from the Poverty Finance subreddit, and it's about something that trips up families at every income level. What happens when the numbers should work, but somehow they never do? This one comes from a young man in the Philippines, 18 years old, watching his family's finances fall apart despite a solid income. Nearly 400 upvotes and over 200 comments. The response in that thread tells you how many people recognize this pattern. Let me read it to you in their own words. Hello, I'm an 18-year-old male, and I just want to share something that's been bothering me for a while. To start, my dad earns around $3,000 to $6,000 per month. Converted to Philippine pesos, that's a significant amount of money. However, over the past year, I've noticed that my mom has been taking out loans from lending apps. I found out because she's been using my email address when filling out the applications. She usually borrows around 10,000 to 30,000 pesos every month. One day, I received an email saying she had an outstanding balance of 130,000 pesos. When I saw that, my heart dropped. What I don't understand is why my mom still needs to borrow money when my dad earns that much. Every month after my dad gets paid, we seem to have enough money for the first 2 weeks. Then, during the last 2 weeks of the month, we're suddenly out of money, and my mom takes out another loan. We don't live a lavish lifestyle, we rarely go out, and we don't spend much on unnecessary things. That's why I'm so confused about where all the money is going. I haven't talked to my mom about it yet because I don't know how to bring it up without sounding accusatory. Even my dad has started to become suspicious about where the money is going. Has anyone experienced something similar, either personally or with a family member? What could explain a situation like this? I know there could be reasons I'm unaware of, and I don't want to jump to conclusions. I'm just worried and would appreciate any advice on how to approach this conversation with my mom. Okay. First thing I want to say reading this is this kid is being extraordinarily thoughtful. He finds out his mom is carrying serious loan debt in his own inbox. His dad is getting suspicious, and his first instinct isn't to blow things up. He wants answers, not accusations. That instinct is actually mature, and it's going to serve him well in what comes next. I've been writing about personal finance for over a decade, and the pattern I keep seeing in situations like this, where a family earns what should be enough but stays broke every month, almost always comes down to one of three things. And the most important one is almost never the thing people assume first. We'll cover all three. Just a friendly reminder that this episode is for entertainment and education only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. For your specific situation, talk to a qualified financial advisor, and in a case like this one, a family counselor is worth bringing in. All right, let's talk about what's actually going on here and what this 18-year-old might do about it. Start with the pattern that the original poster describes. Strong money the first 2 weeks, then nothing. Every single month, there's a name for this in personal finance, the feast-famine cycle, and here's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't care how much you earn. It only cares about the relationship between when money comes in and when obligations go out. Here's the mechanism. Money arrives, bills get paid, groceries are bought. For the first 2 weeks, there's breathing room, then the next round of expenses hits, and there's not quite enough left. A loan fills the gap. Next month, you're paying back last month's loan before the new month even starts, which means the comfortable window shrinks a little. The cycle tightens, and the outstanding balance climbs, just like the original poster described, from one small loan to 130,000 pesos sitting in an inbox. That's the first piece of the puzzle. The lending app cycle itself has become a budget problem. Even if there were no other mystery spending, borrowing at high interest every month is pulling money out of next month's budget. The math always gets worse, never better until something breaks the cycle. Now here's where it gets complicated. The loan cycle explains the mechanics, but it doesn't explain the origin. Something started this. There was a first shortfall before the first loan, and whatever caused it is probably still happening. The money is going somewhere, and the original poster is right to ask. In my experience covering these situations, there are three explanations worth considering, and I'd weight them in a specific order. The first, and honestly the most common in Filipino households in particular, is what I'd call the hidden obligation pattern. In the Philippines and across much of Southeast Asia, it's culturally normal and sometimes expected for a working family to support extended relatives. Parents who need help, a sibling going through a hard stretch, a cousin who can't make rent. This isn't irresponsible spending. It's family. But it's also a significant financial commitment that, if it isn't part of the shared household budget, becomes invisible. One person knows about it, the other doesn't. And the one who doesn't can't understand why the money keeps disappearing. If this is what's happening, mom isn't doing anything wrong in the moral sense. She's managing a family obligation she hasn't known how to name. The issue isn't character, it's communication. And that's actually fixable. The second possibility is earlier debt. Sometimes the lending apps weren't the beginning. Maybe there was a medical expense, an emergency, a business loss that happened before anyone noticed, and the loans came later as a way to keep managing the fallout. In that case, the 130,000 pesos is a symptom, not the root cause. There's something older underneath it. Third, and I'll name it directly because skipping it would be incomplete, sometimes there's spending that one spouse keeps private from the other. This can range from small things that are simply hard to admit all the way into more serious situations. The original poster says the family doesn't spend on unnecessary things and doesn't live large, and I take that at face value. But a full household budget review would surface anything hidden. So what should this 18-year-old actually do? Here's how I'd think about it. First, the conversation has to happen, and it has to be framed as concern, not accusation. There's a technique I'd call the soft financial check-in. You don't lead with, I know about the loans. You lead with something closer to, I've been thinking about how our household budget works, and I want to understand it better. Curiosity, not confrontation. The goal of the first conversation is just to open the door. Second, this probably needs to eventually become a conversation between the parents, not just the original poster and mom. Dad is already suspicious. That suspicion is going to surface one way or another. Better that it comes out in a calm, structured setting than in an argument late at night when another collection email arrives. A family money meeting where everyone sits down with the actual numbers, income on one side, and all obligations on the other, is the healthiest way to get everyone on the same page. Third, if they do that budget review, I'd strongly recommend zero-based budgeting. The idea is simple. Every peso gets assigned a job before the month starts. Fixed expenses first, variable spending second, savings third, and what's left is truly discretionary. This approach forces every obligation into the open. You can't hide a 30,000 peso monthly loan repayment in a zero-based budget because there's no unnamed pile of money to absorb it. Everything has to be named. Fourth, the lending apps need to stop. Even before the full debt is resolved, each new loan adds interest to next month's burden, making the shortfall worse by a little bit each cycle. The debt avalanche method, putting any extra payments toward the highest interest debt first while making minimum payments on the rest, is the standard framework for climbing out. But you can't start the avalanche while you're still piling new snow on the top. The first move is a hard stop on new borrowing. Now, I know just stop taking loans sounds obvious. It's not that simple. If there's a genuine monthly shortfall, stopping the loans without a plan just means something else doesn't get paid. So the stopping has to happen at the same time as the household rebuilds its budget with everyone at the table and the real numbers in front of them. That's exactly why the conversation comes first. One more thing worth saying. The original poster, is worried about sounding accusatory, and that instinct is exactly right. Financial secrets in families almost never come from bad intentions. They come from shame, from wanting to protect people, from not knowing the words for, I'm in over my head. Mom may be carrying something overwhelming on her own because she doesn't know how to ask for help. The conversation that would actually help her is not, where did the money go? It's, I see you're carrying something heavy. Let's figure it out together. The specific post today was about a family in the Philippines, a dad earning good money, a mom with 130,000 pesos in lending app debt, and a teenage son trying to make sense of it all. But the principle underneath it applies anywhere. Income level is not a guarantee of financial stability. What you earn matters far less than what you've committed to spending, what's going unsaid in the budget, and whether the people who share a household actually share the numbers. The feast-famine cycle can happen at any income. The fix is always the same. full transparency, a zero-based budget, and a plan to break the loan cycle before the interest makes it unbreakable. If you found this helpful, share it with someone dealing with the same thing. Until next time, stay profitable.